There is a mouse walking calmly towards a cat. It isn't afraid. It should be. Every ancestor it has ever had was born knowing to run from that smell. Something has quietly turned that instinct off. That something has no brain. Its name is Toxoplasma gondii. It is a single-celled organism, smaller than a red blood cell, and it is one of the most successful parasites on this planet. It has infected roughly 1/3 of all humans on Earth. That is not a mistake, not a rare tropical thing. Right now, latent in the brains of 2 to 3 billion people, is this parasite. Most of them will never find out. In the next 12 minutes, 3 things. What it does to that mouse. It is one of the most surgical acts of manipulation ever recorded in biology. Whether it is doing anything similar to us. And why the honest answer to that second question is stranger than either yes or no. Start with the map. Toxoplasma is everywhere, but it is not evenly everywhere. In some countries, roughly 10% of the population carries it. In others, more than 60%. The differences do not track poverty or geography as cleanly as you might expect. They track diet and cats. Places where people eat more undercooked meat. Places where cats are more common in homes and streets. Wherever those 2 lines cross, the number climbs. Those are the 3 ways it gets in. Undercooked meat, especially pork and lamb. Unwashed vegetables. And contact with cat feces, which in almost every case means litter, not the cat itself. Once it's inside a warm-blooded body, it multiplies rapidly, sometimes causing brief flu-like symptoms most people never notice or attribute to something else. And then it does something strange. It goes quiet. It slips into tissues the immune system can't easily reach, muscle, eyes, and above all, the brain. There, it wraps itself in a protective cyst wall and stops moving. Not gone, just paused. In most people, it stays paused for the rest of their life. This is called a latent infection. You don't feel it. A blood test would show antibodies. Your only real clue that it's there is the blood. Now, the question the rest of this video is about. What happens next? If it's just sitting there doing nothing, why should we care? The uncomfortable answer is that we don't fully know it is doing nothing. And we know for certain that it can do something remarkable, because in another species we've watched it happen. But before we get there, you have to understand one crucial thing. Something almost every video about this parasite gets wrong. It doesn't want to be in you. You are, biologically speaking, an accident. And to understand why, we have to talk about the one place on Earth this parasite is actually trying to reach. A cat. Not any specific cat, just a cat. Because everything Toxoplasma does, every act of manipulation, every trick of the immune system, every one of those CSTS in your brain, is in service of getting back into one. Toxoplasma can only sexually reproduce inside the intestine of a cat. That is its one non-negotiable requirement. Every other host it enters, birds, sheep, humans, is a detour. The parasite can survive in us. It cannot complete itself in us. To do that, it has to get from wherever it is now back into a cat's gut, and that requires the current host to be eaten. For its most important stepping stone, the small rodent, it evolved something extraordinary. It turns off the animal's fear of being eaten. Specifically, its fear of one predator, the cat. Rodents have one of the most reliable fear responses in behavioral neuroscience. Show a mouse, even one raised in a lab that has never seen a cat in its life, the smell of cat urine, and it will freeze or flee. This isn't learned, it's hardwired. It's genetic. It's one of the reasons mice, as a species, still exist. An uninfected mouse given a chamber with cat scent in one corner does the sensible thing. It avoids that corner, It does this reliably, hundreds of times, across countless studies. An infected mouse does not. Studies going back to a landmark 2000 experiment by Burdoy, Webster, and MacDonald have shown, again and again, that mice with latent Toxoplasma infection lose this fear. Some of them go further. They are actively drawn to the smell. The researchers named the phenomenon fatal feline attraction. The parasite has surgically removed the one instinct that was keeping its host alive. And this is what makes it so unsettling. The mouse isn't sick, it isn't slow, it isn't confused. It runs mazes normally, it eats normally, it reproduces normally. The parasite has targeted one specific thing, the neural circuit that routes cat smell to terror, and it has edited it out. Cysts form throughout the brain, but they show a tendency to concentrate in regions involved in fear and reward, including the amygdala. Toxoplasma even carries genes for enzymes in the dopamine production pathway. Read that again. A single-celled organism smaller than a red blood cell is carrying the machinery to tamper with the mammal's brain chemistry. The exact molecular chain is still being argued in the scientific literature. Which pathway dominates? How much of the effect is dopamine? How much is direct manipulation of the fear circuit? But the behavioral outcome is not in doubt. In rodents, this parasite does something almost no other pathogen on record does. It doesn't kill, it doesn't sicken, it reroutes, and then it waits for the cat. So, the same parasite that does that to a mouse is also in a third of us. The obvious question is the one this video is really about. Is it doing the same thing to you? Here is where almost every video about Toxoplasma lies to its audience. The honest answer is not a clean yes, it is not a clean no, it is a genuinely unresolved maybe. And the science behind that maybe is more interesting than either of the confident versions. Here is what the research actually shows in humans. Correlational studies going back 3 decades have reported subtle links between latent infection and small differences in behavior. Slightly slower reaction times, slightly higher risk-taking on certain measures. Personality shifts along specific dimensions, small in size, statistically detectable across large populations. Not dramatic. Detectable. One frequently cited example: traffic accidents. Several studies have found infected people modestly overrepresented among those involved in car crashes, possibly, the researchers suggest, through slowed reaction time. That association is real in several data sets. Some replications are weaker. It is contested. It is not fabricated. Then, the schizophrenia association. Infected individuals appear somewhat overrepresented among people diagnosed with schizophrenia. Multiple studies, multiple countries, replicated in meta-analyses. It is a real signal. It is not proof of a cause. The direction could run either way. Infection could nudge risk, or the same underlying traits could nudge infection. Every study has confounds. The honest sentence is, the association exists. It is being investigated. It is not settled. And then, more recently, something even stranger. Infected people may be more likely to start their own businesses. A 2018 study published in Proceedings of the Royal Society B found infected graduate students more likely to pursue entrepreneurship. The interpretation the researchers offered was, again, the risk-taking thread. Slightly reduced fear response, slightly bolder choices. It is one study, replicated in fragments, contested in others, preliminary, but real enough to be published. Now, the sentence that has to sit at the center of this section. Correlation is not causation. And here, the confounding is severe. People who own cats, eat certain foods, or live in certain conditions are both more likely to be infected and may differ from the uninfected in dozens of ways completely unrelated to the parasite. Effect sizes, where they exist, are small, and nothing in the human literature, nothing, resembles what happens to that mouse. No one has shown Toxoplasma controlling a human being. What the data supports, at most, is a subtle statistical nudge, in some people, on some measures, sometimes. That is a very different sentence from the parasite is in your head, making you do things. It is also not the parasite does nothing. It is honestly the strangest possible answer. Something small, uncertain, real enough not to dismiss, weak enough to be almost invisible. So, whatever Toxoplasma is doing to us, it is almost certainly not doing it on purpose. Humans, in a world with far fewer wild cats hunting us, are a dead end. Anything happening in a human brain right now, the reaction times, the risk-taking, the whispers in a fear circuit, is a side effect. A mechanism built for a mouse running faintly in a species it never meant to reach. That is what makes this parasite the strangest one in the entire series. Every other parasite in this canon was executing a precise plan on the host it was inside. The tongue-eating louse doing what it evolved to do to a fish. Saccharina to a crab. Rabies to a dog. Toxoplasma, if it is doing anything to you at all, is doing it accidentally, a program built for something small, running in a body it will almost never reach the endpoint through. Every previous parasite in this canon seized a body or seized a brain. This one, in us, doesn't seize anything. At most, it leans on probabilities. A slower reaction, once. A slightly bolder choice another time. A whisper in a fear circuit that no one hears, because no one is looking. It doesn't take the wheel, it may lean on it. And that reframes what mind control can even mean. It doesn't have to be total or dramatic or visible. It can be statistical, a parasite that shifts the behavior of a population by a fraction of a percent across billions of hosts. That may be far more common in nature than the cases dramatic enough for us to see. One brief note before the close, because it matters. Toxoplasma does have real medical significance during pregnancy. That is why doctors talk to expectant parents about litter boxes and undercooked meat. Outside of that, for most healthy adults, latent infection stays exactly what it is. Latent. You may be carrying it right now. It is almost certainly not controlling you. But almost certainly not controlling you is a stranger sentence to sit with than either yes or no. That discomfort, the small, honest, unresolved space between the answers, is the most interesting thing this parasite has to teach. If you're the kind of person who wants the version of a story that survives scrutiny, where the science is stranger than the exaggeration, subscribe. There is one more parasite in this canon we haven't touched, and it has spent the last 20 years quietly rewriting what we thought was possible in the dark corners of biology. That one is next.